Hello everyone
Hi there, welcome back.
to our book club. I am Miss Maka.
And I am Mr. Darrell. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty psychological novel, The Red and the Black.
By Stendhal. So, Le Rouge et le Noir is a historical psychological novel in 2 volumes by Stendhal, published in 1830.
In brief, it's the story of a sort of man of low means who rises up in society, French society, through his talent, hard work, deception, and hypocrisy, but ultimately his passions betray him.
Yes, it's really interesting. Stay up with us, but first let's start with the agenda for today's program. Definitely we will start with the new vocabulary that we have chosen for you, special 8 words. Then we will talk about the author. After that, we will show you, tell you shortly what is the story about.
From there, we'll have a look at some of the characters, the main characters, look at the setting, very important for this book, and some of the main themes as well.
And of course, finally, we will give you a homework.
Okay, Ms. Maka, I think it's time for the vocabulary look.
What is our first word?
Private secretary. Private secretary. It's a noun, and it's a person who attends to the individual or confidential work of someone he works for.
სახელმწიფო თანამდებობის პირის თანაშემწე.
Our next word is affair. Affair, it's a noun. It's got a lot of meanings, but in this context, for today, we're taking it to mean the following. Anything requiring action or effort.
საქმე.
Our next word is execution. Execution. It's got 2 meanings. It's a noun. In its simple form, it means the performing of an act successfully. But in this context as well, particularly for this era, it's when the state or the government executes, kills a criminal. It's the execution of the criminal.
Yeah, and that's why we give you 2 translations for this word. აღსრულება და სიკვდილით დასჯა.
Our next word is trial. Trial. It's a noun. It's when a person is judged by his peers, usually in the legal profession, for a crime he may have committed or not committed.
სასამართლო, საქმის განხილვა.
Our next word is to betray. It's a verb, to betray. This is when you are disloyal to someone and you put them in a worse situation because they trusted you.
საიდუმლოს გაცემა, ღალატი.
Our next word is mistress. Mistress, it's a noun. It has different meanings. It's a woman who has control or power over an institution or persons. This is the meaning for today.
გამგებელი, მფლობელი, დიასახლისი, like housewife thing also can be a mistress of the house.
Yes.
Thank you.
To impress, it's a verb, to impress, to deeply affect or someone strongly in the mind or in their feelings.
შთაბეჭდილების მოხდენა.
And the last word is a phrase, to keep a promise. To keep a promise. Not to betray or break the trust of someone, basically to be faithful to them.
პირობის შესრულება. So we finished with a very, very positive vocabulary unit, right?
It's always good to end on a positive note.
Of course, definitely.
Let's have a look at the author now. Very influential French author. His real name is Marie-Henri Beyle. Born in the 18th century and dies about 1840 in the 19th century. So he bridges both 18th and 19th century. Better known by the name that we know him by, Stendhal. He is a 19th century French writer, best known for the novel we're talking about today, Le Rouge et le Noir, The Red and the Black, of 1830, and Le Chartreuse de Parme, the Charter House of Parma in 1839.
I adore your French pronunciation. So he is highly regarded for the sharp analysis of his character, psychology, and considered one of the early and foremost practitioners of realism. Mr. Darrell, did you know that Stendhal actually divided the birth of love into 4 stages? So this is how he understood the love started in humans' mind or heart.
Yeah, he had this theory about love. It's quite famous, actually. It's quite discussed, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about it today as well.
I'm really interested.
Let's go over the 4 stages. So the first stage is admiration. You have admiration for the person you love. You marvel at the qualities of this person. Then there's a second stage, acknowledgement. So first admiration, then acknowledgement. You acknowledge the pleasantness of having gained his or her interest.
So third stage is hope. So this is one envisions gaining the love of the loved ones. And the fourth stage, according to Stendhal, is delight. One delights in overrating the beauty and the merit of the person whose love one hopes to win.
Ms. Maka, as we can see, it's realistically probably a theory. It's a theory that he holds, maybe not one that the rest of us might hold. We might not agree with this theory, but this was his famous 19th century theory about love.
But I think all 4 stages are very important when you fall in love.
And and does it happen in that order? Maybe one stage might come before the other, but yeah.
Exactly.
Let's ask a question to the audience now. Do you like stories with good psychological writing, as this author is famous for, about characters and situations?
I think they are very interesting because they can show us surprising sides to people's motivation and also characters, and they might not be behaving a certain way because of some obvious reasons we think about at first.
Very good. That's a great answer. I mean, the power of the French writers, they're always more psychological and more insightful.
And that's very interesting for me also to read, because you might find out that certain behaviors have certain reasons that I might have not thought about before. Okay, thank you very much. Now let's look at the summary of the book. Le Rouge et le Noir is the story of Julien Sorel. So this is an intelligent and ambitious protagonist of the novel. He comes from a very poor family and he's not familiar, so he cannot really understand much about the ways of the world that he conquers.
He holds many romantic illusions at first, and he mostly becomes a kind of chess piece, a pawn, if you will, in the political plans of the influential people around him. So he's got lots of ideas, but he's not powerful enough to do them himself.
Yeah, and the adventure of the hero actually satirizes the 19th century French society and accusing the aristocrats and also Catholic Church, but like clergy, of being hypercritical and also materialistic, foretelling that they will soon depose them from the leading positions and some kind of influential characteristic that they have on French society.
The first chapter of each of the volumes of this book repeats the title, Le Rouge et le Noir, and the subtitle, Chronique de 1830. The title refers to the contrasting uniforms, by the way, of the army and the church, the red and the black.
Yeah, wow. So early in the story, Julien Sorel, he realistically observes that under the Bourbon Restoration, it is impossible for a man of his plebeian social class to distinguish himself in the army, as he might have done under Napoleon.
Napoleon's time.
Yeah, exactly.
And hence only a career in the church offers him social advancement and glory. So that is the basic structure of the story.
Yeah. And I think now it is time for a question to our audience. So do you think a story like this is still relevant to the modern day?
Yes, I think it's still definitely relevant to the modern day because the events it talks about could still happen today. People still try to have great ambitions without being able to truly understand themselves or how to accomplish them.
Excellent. So another reason why these kinds of psychological novels are still relevant today. We're still the same as the 19th century.
Exactly. We still have our ambitions, our dreams, and so on and so on.
Which we might not succeed at.
Yeah. So that's why this is an everlasting story, right? Okay. Now it is high time to introduce ourselves to the characters.
Let's start with the protagonist, Julien Sorel. He's the central character of the novel. He starts off 19 years old, and he's the son of a carpenter, a provincial carpenter from outside the big city. But he is ambitious, intelligent, fierce, hypocritical, and an admirer of Napoleon. Julien dreams of rising in the ranks of French society. His photographic memory gives him the opportunity to become a successful priest, but Julien wants only to be a soldier, perhaps dreaming of Napoleon's glory.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And just like any other romantic characters, he also falls in love with his conquests, but also, just like others, also he doesn't know what he is doing. All he knows is from the books and not his own experience, and that is also very interesting, and I think that is the reason we know that he's obsessed with Napoleon, right? But he lets other people choose his own path.
And his ambition works against him. I mean, he's so ambitious that he ignores more appropriate livelihoods for himself, and he tries to go for the more glorious ones, which may be a bit too far for him. This also happens in love. His failure to succeed in both love and in life is also, by the way, a failure of the society which has no place for people like him.
Our next character is Madame de Renal. So both an aristocrat and the wife of the mayor, Madame de Renal is Julien's first love interest. So she truly loves Julien, and although she cheats on her husband, she is still a symbol of purity and kindness. That's really interesting why and how this character remains this
morally pure.
Yeah, morally pure. So unlike every other character, Madame de Renal is honest. Maybe that's
why she's true to herself.
Exactly, okay, and compassionate, and also she's very resourceful. She is one of the few characters of all French literature to die of love.
Unlike the Shakespearean heroes who all die of love.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit of spoiler about the character.
Our next character is Mathilde de la Mole, the daughter of the Marquis. Mathilde is bored with Parisian society and immediately takes a liking to Julien. Slightly imbalanced, Mathilde has a flair for the dramatic. She is obsessed with her ancestor, Boniface de la Mole, and pretends that Julien looks and acts like her ancestor. She falls in love with Julien and urges her father to ennoble him, to raise him up in society, because she cannot forget Julien's lower class status. And it's a bit of a shame that he is so lower class for her.
Yeah, exactly. Our next character is Monsieur de Renal. So he is the mayor of Verrières, and he's a very conservative supporter of the Restoration, and as a result is considered obtuse and greedy. He is only focused on his own joy, on his own ambitions, and only on his title and rank. So that's why, although he's constantly ridiculed and actually he is manipulated, our character Julien sees him as an adversary.
Our last character is the Marquis de la Mole. He's the benefactor of Monsieur Pirard and Julien's employer in Paris. The Marquis is a symbol of the dying aristocracy. So remember, this comes after Napoleon's, we'll talk about that in this setting section, but this comes after Napoleon's era, where he's changed all of society, so everything is still being settled. And this Marquis is a symbol of the dying aristocracy. He treats Julien as an equal, but only when Julien wears the right clothes. So there's still a bit of older, kind of looking back to the old times. He's fearful of Julien's intelligence, this new man who can come from the provinces and is a bit of a threat. And he ennobles him, he raises his social status only reluctantly.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's the result of the revolution period that is happening in the book. So we will see later.
Here's a question for our audience. Julien has learned what he knows from books and not from experience. Do you think that this is a great flaw?
I think it's flaw. Learning from the experience is much more better than learning from the books. The reason is because learning from your own experience makes you judge things more wisely.
Very good, very good.
Thank you very much.
I'd agree with that. I think experience is a better teacher than book learning.
Yeah, of course, you can read the book and you can get a lot of experience as a theory, but you need your own life, your own stories.
Although we are teachers and we do love our books to teach with.
Definitely, of course. But you should read the books to be more confident when you act.
Very right. Well, Ms. Maka, let's move on to the setting.
Exactly. So let's talk about when and where the story happened. So Le Rouge et Le Noir is set in the later years of Bourbon Restoration. It is 1814 to 1830, and the days of the 1830s July Revolution that established the Kingdom of France.
Very good. So as you know, it was Napoleon that comes in, changes everything, goes and conquers most of Europe, fails at Russia, and then comes all the way back. And the Bourbon kings, the royal family, comes back in. And at that point is where the story starts. Julien's worldly ambitions are motivated by the emotional tensions between his idealistic republicanism from Napoleon's days. He looks at Napoleon as a hero, and his nostalgic allegiance to the old ways. The realistic politics of counter-revolutionary conspiracy by many of the different factions, notably the Marquis, is also very important in this situation.
Yeah. Presuming a knowledgeable reader, Stendhal only refers a little bit to the history background of Le Rouge et Le Noir, yet he did subtitle the novel Chronique de 1830. This is called Chronicle of 1830.
Ms. Maka, I think it's time for a question to the audience.
Okay, so does the time that a person is born in have the largest influence on him or her?
I think it's a little bit of both. Of course, the time that a person is born in will have a great effect of how he thinks or acts, but in every person there is also a lot of individuality that comes within from her and or him.
Very good answer. So a place the time does affect a person's character. Imagine people born in our time.
Yeah, but people are generally very individualistic and they have their own attitudes as well. And they might go against the time, against the common traditions that we have during the time. Don't you think, Mr. Darrell?
I do agree with you, and I think that's why we read books like this, to see how other characters go through the same thoughts and emotions and how they deal with it. In our case, Julien fails to a certain degree, but hopefully the reader learns from those mistakes and does better themselves.
And I do think that he more or less fails because he's being manipulated.
By society, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he lets this
He lets it happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the main themes of the book. We've got a couple, and I'll start with the first one. It is sincerity versus hypocrisy. So being sincere, being truthful, being honest with yourself, versus lying to yourself and to others. Stendhal repeatedly questions the possibility and the desirability of sincerity, which might surprise you. So he's on the side of perhaps a more complicated look at it. Because most of the characters, especially Julien, are acutely aware, sharply aware of having to play a role to gain social approval. They know that they have to play, they kind of have to, there's a famous saying, you got to fake it till you make it. So he's aware that he's got to fake some things about himself to make it successfully. In the 19th century, the word hypocrisy indicated the affectation of high religious sentiment because of the way French society was structured at the time. And in The Red and the Black, this book, it connotes the contradiction between thinking and feeling. To help achieve this effect in the book, Stendhal, in fact, writes most of the quotations that are all over the book. And he pretends that they've been said by others, but he wrote them himself.
Yeah, maybe that's also due to the reason that he was kind of hiding it from the society, and as if it's not him saying this, right?
Yes, very good point.
Okay, now what about the next main topic, main theme, is the desire. So there is the idea that a person's desire for another is always influenced by the third party. So this accounts for Julien's fascination with and membership in the high society. He simultaneously desires and hates both together.
Excellent point. A simple way to look at this is two neighbors. One neighbor buys a Porsche or a Lamborghini, and that influences the second neighbor to want the same thing. Just because the neighbor has it, now he wants it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it's kind of like teaser thing.
Teaser, and you try competing with your neighbors, and if the neighbors have one better than you, you feel like you've got to get up to that level as well. Then he tries to get one up more, and you try to go up one more.
Is that the way we can say that the grass is always greener in the neighbor's yard?
Yeah, well, that's precisely what it is.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I think it is time for a question, Mr. Darrell.
It is time for a question. Here's the question. Can reading about negative behaviors and emotions in characters improve the personality of the reader?
Yes, I think that it is a great benefit of reading books, especially classic books and novels. They have such power and insight that they make us see ourselves in a new way.
Great answer. That's exactly why, now that I think about it, why I've enjoyed reading classic books so much, for the things that I've learned from them.
Exactly, of course, and it helps us see ourselves in different situations or other people in our life in different situations.
But we shouldn't make the same mistake as Julianne and think that everything we learn from books is all that we need in life.
Yeah, or everything is, we can't relate everything to our life, right?
We also have the
Our
real
own
world
experience.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Darrell, I think it is high time to wrap up everything. So we started with the author, Stendhal.
We moved off to a summary of the story, and you know, it's this tale of this provincial kid with a lot of talent who comes up to the city, tries to get ahead, and is not too successful.
We talked about the characters, and here I would just point out Julien, who is a very interesting character of the book.
From there, we have the setting, the 19th century, right after Napoleon, when the monarchy came back. Remember when Napoleon was part of that republicanism side? And in France.
Yeah, and the main themes, these were desire, hypocrisy, and sincerity.
One more thing we should do is look at the words, the word list from the beginning of the lesson. I'll repeat them once more. We had private secretary, affair, execution, trial, to betray, mistress, to impress, and to keep one's promise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darrell. And of course, this is the time to give you a homework.
Here's the question for the homework. The main character is caught between having a romantic view of the world and learning to view the world in a realistic way. Speak about the benefits of holding both kinds of views, being romantic in your views and being realistic in your views, and then say which one you prefer more.
წიგნის მთავარი გმირი ორ სხვადასხვა მსოფლმხედველობას შორის მერყეობს. ერთის მხრივ ის ძალიან რომანტიკულად უყურებს სამყაროს, მეორეს მხრივ ის სწავლობს მოვლენების რეალისტურად აღქმას. ისაუბრეთ ორივე მიდგომის უპირატესობაზე და ჩამოაყალიბეთ თქვენი აზრი, თუ რომელ მათგანს ანიჭებთ უპირატესობას.
Ms. Maka, and they can send those answers, which will be fascinating indeed, to the address they see on the screen right now.
პასუხები შეგიძლიათ გამოაგზავნოთ ეკრანზე მითითებულ მისამართზე.
So, Ms. Maka, are you more of a romantic or more of a realist?
I am more of a realist rather than romantic. And actually, Mr. Daryl, I was just thinking about our today's outfit. It is so symbolic. I'm wearing red and you're wearing black.
Which one's the church and which one's the army?
I will be the army.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, the audience, for really interesting answers. And I guess that's it for today.
Well, through the magic of television, we will see our audience once more next time.
Yeah, with even more interesting books. We'll be back to you next week. Goodbye.
Until next time, goodbye.